Henry VIII failed to get from the Pope what he wanted. He wanted an annulment for his marriage to Catherine of Braganza so that he could marry Anne Boleyn. Catherine of Braganza hadn't given him a son, which was probably the only thing that there was against her as such. And Anne Boleyn had taken the king's fancy, so in order to have her, he used the fact that Catherine, his queen, hadn't given him a son to get rid of her. The Pope refused him an annulment. Henry didn't like being thwarted, so he set himself up as the head of his own church. Now, that had many repercussions. By setting himself up as the head of his own church, all the monasteries were disbanded. And there was a great deal of persecution throughout various reigns. I think that property had quite a lot to do with it. The Catholic Church controlled a very great deal of property. There was, as you know, a Reformation in Europe, and there was probably a great deal of need for reform. But the amount of persecution and punishment that went on during Henry VIII's time, in English history books, one has the impression that when Henry VIII created the Church of England, everybody said, that's fine, we'll all be Anglicans. And I think that they forget that it took a very long time, over 100 years really, for people to come around to leaving behind the old religion as it became known and really accepting the Anglican religion. There were these people called recusants for a very long time, people privately, secretly still practicing Catholicism. And then when, of course, Henry VIII's daughter Mary came to the throne, when her brother died, she persecuted those who became Anglican. And then Elizabeth came, and you see, there was this up and down thing for a very long time.
So
between
it's politicized?
Politicized completely. And I think it became tradition. I mean, when I married my husband, there were people who wouldn't speak to me because I was Catholic in the family. Even, relations. Not personal. You see, it wasn't personal. This is historical. This is ingrained history. And I often wonder, people say, oh, well, they can change the law and the heir to the throne can marry a Catholic because it's silly nowadays to have these divisions. But I think these divisions go so deep in historical reasons. And who knows if all those people who had their land taken or their property taken might not pop up and go to the Court of Human Rights or something and demand it back. I mean, I have no idea about that sort of thing.
But do you think, let's expand this a bit, do you think the God that you worship as a Catholic is the same God that the Muslims worship, Allah? Is the
Absolutely, absolutely. I think God is all-encompassing, a huge, great mushroom in the universe that embraces all who believe in a superior being. It's just that the Christian God is a forgiving God. He's not an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth God. But he's up there for everybody. And it's throughout history, since earliest time, man has worshipped a superior being. So it must be something in the nature, in human nature, that needs to worship a superior being. Sometimes those gods have taken human form, as in pharaohs, or many pagan religions worshipped human forms, as we do in a way in Jesus Christ.
But it's the same God.
It's I can't speak for others, but for me, it's the same God. It's a superior being. It's someone to give your emotional and spiritual and intellectual dedication to.
What do you think about all these people that, getting back to the conflicts that go around the world as far as religion is concerned, what do you think about these people that fight in the name of God? For instance, terrorists, whether they be fanatic Christian, fanatic Muslim, fanatic anything, fanatic Hindu, What are your thoughts on those types of people?
I think they're very dangerous. I think any fanatic is very dangerous. Whether he's a serial murderer or, they're fanatic, aren't they? I read about somebody today who wanted to have killed more women than anybody else, a Russian who's just been condemned. And he killed 63, but he wanted to kill all the squares on the chessboard, and there were 64. There's one more to go. I mean, this is fanaticism, and there's fanatics about everything. Fanatics about exercise, fanatics about golf, fanatics... And any fanatic, I think, is bad. Anything that's fanatic is bad. Fanatic is bad. Just as religious fanatics are. Any extreme, I think, is foolish. Because it leads to conflict. Conflict leads to confrontation. Confrontation leads to war. War leads to killing people. And we must at all costs try to avoid war.
What do you think happens when you die?
What do I think happens? Well, I'm not quite sure how long the soul takes to leave the body, but I think we all have within us a spirit that Christians call a soul. There is a spirit within us. There is something else within us that is not just... that makes us different from animals. Human beings are different from animals because we have a soul, we're taught in Christianity. But you can call it a spirit. It's something else that makes us the person we are. And I think that leaves the body, but not necessarily immediately. Throughout history, we've believed that it leaves the body at different times. But that spirit then meets our Maker and has to account for our actions on earth. Our body moulds away.
So you believe that, do you believe that therefore that we're being tested here on earth to a certain extent, rather like, when in your reference to be good, otherwise you get the fear of God? Do you think we're being tested on earth so that when that judgment day comes, we'll either go to heaven or hell?
I think, yes, we're being tested, but I don't see life as a test, really. Everything has to do really with one's upbringing. I think it's terribly difficult if you've been brought up in an African tribe to be converted. I think it's very difficult for converts from paganism to really get the message, and when they do, it's wonderful, because in one's upbringing, we always go back to childhood, don't we? And I was brought up by a very Catholic mother who was very strict in her beliefs, deeply religious and deeply intelligent and wise, and she could speak Latin and conversed with clergy, and we had a lot of clergy around us as children. My brother had been very ill as a child. He had osteomyelitis and couldn't walk, and so he had a tutor who was a young Jesuit, who was very important in our lives. I think it all goes back to childhood for me. I couldn't live without my religion. I couldn't exist. But I can hold it within myself. If I'm on a desert island, I wouldn't be desperate because there wasn't a church or a priest near. It's within me. Well, as you know, the missionary movement was abolished some time ago in the Catholic Church. Pope John the 23rd, I think it was. And when the missionary movement was abolished, the theory was that we do not have the right to force our religion on others. This was taken to the extreme that we, in a sense, don't have the right to force our religion on newborn children. And it's a very strange thing. I don't believe in missionary movements really at all. I think that all one can do is show what you believe in, and if you like that, well, join us. But I'm rather against changing other people's beliefs, because most people have some sort of a belief, albeit, let's say, a pagan belief. No, I've been a very quiet Catholic in the royal family. I haven't converted, although my sister-in-law's become Catholic and one of her children's become Catholic. It's not actually due to me at all. It's nothing to do with me. I'm not really a believer in converting, and I don't like the idea of it at all.